Hello and welcome to Fintech Focus TV with me, Toby. Today, I am absolutely delighted and excited to be talking all things marketing with the MD of Growth Gorilla. It's Shameer. Shameer, how are you doing?
I'm not too bad at all. Thanks for having me on today.
Absolute pleasure, and thanks for approaching us. Look, I've been looking at a few of the things you're doing. I think you're in such an exciting space at the moment. I've seen over the last 2 years, marketing and fintech really take on leaps and bounds, and I think it's at the forefront of everyone's thinking, which I don't think it's always has been. Where text dominated the agenda, but people are recognizing sales to an extent. But I've seen marketing really push further forward over the last couple of years, and people do some brilliant things in the sector. So there's loads and loads I want to dig into and unpack with it all. But before we get into all of that, Shameer, tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us about Growth Gorilla and what you guys are doing at the moment.
Yeah, of course. So about myself, I set up Growth Gorilla back in 2017. Before that, I was sales and marketing director at a financial trading company. And then long before that, I was a private client broker and wealth manager and all things financial services. In terms of what we do here today at Growth Gorilla, we work very specifically with companies within the fintech sector, primarily B2C with a sprinkling of B2B. And we help our clients really solve 3 problems, helping them with their to-market strategy, helping them drive growth, and then helping them enter new territories. Simple as that.
So that's one of the best elevator pitches I've seen so far, and it is. Whilst you say it's as simple as that, I know there's a lot that goes into all 3 of those different areas, with numerous challenges in between each and every step of the journey within all of that. There's so many different companies that are going to marketplace at the moment and doing interesting things. There's so many companies that probably fit into all 3 of those categories at various different phases. Talk to us about the sort of companies you're seeing who are getting in touch with you and who's reaching out to you at the moment.
It's a real mix at the moment. Over the last sort of flavour of the month at the moment seems to be companies that are really focused on ethical investing, sustainability, impact investing. A lot of B2C platforms in that sort of space. A lot of neo banks, challenger banks that are approaching us as well. And then a lot around sort of companies that are really now leveraging open banking, but in the B2C space, which is really interesting as well. So things like credit scoring apps, lending apps, payment apps, etc. So it's a real mix, really, to be honest. Probably 50% of the market.
It definitely sounds it. And look, you're right, because it's an area where it's so broad, isn't it? Fintech on its own is just one of those sectors that sort of catches all. And I think if you spoke to 20 different people, you get 20 different explanations of what fintech really is, which is what I love. It's such a smorgasbord of different opportunities that you're seeing within it, and each of them has certain different vagrancies and variances and different challenges and opportunities and go-to-market strategies. How do you sit with that, and understand those companies, and does it vary depending on which area of the market you're in?
Oh, massively so. In terms of sort of developing go-to-market strategies, a lot of it will depend upon primarily budget, target audience that they're going after, and the sort of territories that they're launching into as well. I would probably say that obviously the type of product it is as well. Generally speaking, more investment-based type of fintech apps will command a higher cost per acquisition than, say, more payment focused or say retail banking type of platform. But that has a big impact on how we sort of market strategy. Taking understanding all of those variables, we can then pull together a strategy that's suited for the individual company.
Yeah. And you see, when you're talking through them and going through the discovery phases, I guess you're getting really looking at what their hopes, dreams, and aspirations are. I guess a lot of those aspirations need a little bit of management. I mean, my soapbox moment is there's a lot of really good fintech ideas out there, but there's not a lot of fintech ideas that necessarily solve a problem that needs to be fixed. And it's those ones, to me, that I've seen over the last couple of years, who I've been talking to every single week on the show, those ones who are solving genuine problems and thinking about that and getting their go-to-market right from the start and having that sort of run rate and everything in play. Those are the ones who are really going to take off. What are you seeing in that? With the companies who you're working with, growth, being very much part of the DNA of the business, I would imagine. With the otherwise, it's just a clever name. With growth being the fuel of it. What are the companies you're seeing? What are companies doing right to get that growth right at the moment? How are you seeing companies really take this on board and utilise it to scale the heights?
To get that growth right, but I think, first and foremost, you mentioned sort of run rate. I think it's about having realistic goals and expectations versus the budget that you actually have. There's a lot of, we want to sign 100,000 customers up. That's great, but if your cost per acquisition, or if for an active user is 50 quid, that's a £5 million marketing budget that you need. And you can come up with the best referral strategy, and it's possible. But bottom line is that that's roughly what it's going to cost you. So I think getting the numbers right, being realistic about that is priority number one. Second of all, it's just thinking about how long it actually takes to get the marketing machine up and running, and what that entails. So if you kind of go back a step, and before we sort of talk about growth, if you kind of talk about the initial piece, which is, you've launched into market, you've done the go-to-market piece, and it's just describe the difference between what a go-to-market strategy is and a growth strategy is. Go-to-market is about nailing the message, audience, product, getting them aligned, pushing that into the marketplace, and then seeing your marketing framework work, and actually then being able to drive down acquisition cost to a reasonable level. That's in line with the marketplace. And once you've done that, and you've gained all of the learnings along the way as to what messages have worked, what audiences are appropriate for you, you remove friction from the journey of sign-up process, etc. Then you can move into growth. So a lot of people sort of talk about, oh yeah, we're really going to be in growth phase, but actually a lot of them are actually still in sort of go-to-market phase. In growth phase is the balance of volume with customer acquisition cost. How can we bring in 50,000 users across the next 12 months, or 100,000 because you've got your Series A or Series B or whatever, over the next 12 months, and how can we bring them in at this particular cost? That's kind of the difference. So by getting your sort of numbers right, making sure that you've actually got the marketing machine up and running, can you really then start looking at driving your growth at that point and focusing on getting growth right. So the companies that have got it right are the ones that have been realistic about numbers, done the test and learn process, they've nailed down the audience, they've got a really clear view of what their value proposition is. Now they're at the stage that they can go, do you know what, wholeheartedly, we're now in a position that we're going to start putting money into marketing, and really start driving their investment into acquisition, driving users in directly proportionate to the amount of money that they're putting in, i.e. the CAC is constant, and the more that they're spending, basically just delivering more and more users. That's when you're at the point where you can then start going, okay, we can start driving our growth. Because if you're in a position where you're putting more budget in, the CAC's going haywire, and that means that you haven't got the audience right, you haven't got the message right, or the customer journey is all over the place, or the customer experience isn't quite right. Once that kind of settles down, you get a baseline for that, you can then start putting more and more money into it. So once you sort of start, you're in a position where you're piling money into your marketing channels. Usually you've probably been concentrating on one or two channels at that point, probably some sort of mixture of Google and Facebook, or Facebook and Twitter. Because if you're doing a good go-to-market strategy, stick to 2 or 3 channels. Growth is really about balancing that volume, as I said, with CAC. And the way you're going to increase that volume is expanding the number of channels, and expanding out the audiences. So then you've got to start thinking about which audience can we pick up most cost effectively. We kind of internally, we've kind of like coined it our sort of champagne pyramid. So if you think about, you're pouring champagne at the top of this, this pyramid of glasses. So exactly. What you want to be doing is filling up the first glass first. So the first glass is audience with the highest intent with the lowest possible acquisition cost. And then as the glasses move down, and you sort of go down those rows, you're then picking up the audience that's slightly lower intent, and it's slightly higher to acquisition. And then at every level, target those audiences, maybe a different mix of channels that you're using. So you've got to start thinking about how do you balance volume with customer acquisition costs, and then how do you make sure you're picking the right channels for each target audience that you're going after.
Yeah.
Then for each of those target audiences, so now we talk about lifetime value of the customer. Not every audience is born the same, right? So you're going to have higher value customers versus lower value customers. You might be able to pick up a high volume of customers, but they're not delivering the same level of lifetime value. So
and that's all part of the strategy at the start, right? That's sussing out exactly who you want to sell to, where you want them to go, and how you want to get into that, which I think is, probably an underestimated part of all this. As you say, look, it starts with that first piece. You're getting your go-to-market strategy right, and knowing who and what and where you want to go to. And again, if I look at some of the best companies that we've worked with and spoken to on the show, it's those businesses who are absolutely laser focused on what problem they're solving and how they want to take that to marketplace and who they want to sell it to. So they know the size and scale of their product market fit. They know where they want to head with it. I'm really interested in this sort of evolution of marketing that we've seen, which I don't want to romance this, but I think it's probably the last 2 years has really been the sort of heyday for marketing and financial technology. As traditional sales sort of stopped down with the corporate show or the networking or going out for lunches and such, like with sales teams doing that, it pushed a lot of budget over into marketing, and we've seen pretty stunning returns from that as automation and various other areas has delivered increased value to companies, particularly in the B2C. I think in B2C it's always very heavily been down that sort of thing, but we've seen an evolution in B2B at the same sort of time where marketing's been embraced. And I think the legacy of that, as we start to get back a little bit more towards normality, has been a much closer link between sales and marketing, where we've probably seen the two buying as the sort of two-star strikers that have never really got along, but should be probably working as a team a little bit further. Right now, we're seeing marketing probably carry a lot more budgetary responsibility, having a sharper focus on ROI, and really being linked to proper driven leads and what's done with those leads in terms of conversion as well. Is that something you've seen, or is that something I'm making up?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's always kind of been present there in the B2C world, and it's as a natural evolution. I think in B2B, especially with COVID and the pandemic, you think about all of those business development guys that basically got grounded, that couldn't go to events, all of that kind of disappeared. So they had to find new ways of making connections. I think in the B2B world, it's been very much about demand generation. Whereas in B2C, it's a lot more it's a lot more performance led. The B2B world is more about creating awareness of your product as high up the funnel as possible, using platforms like podcasting, webinars, fireside chats, and leveraging and using social channels. LinkedIn is a primary example of there's always LinkedIn's a bit Marmite. It's a great channel. I think if you use it in the right way, it can be fantastic. So yeah, I think a lot of the sales responsibilities have now kind of moved over to marketing. I think that's kind of a thing as well, because there was always that, like you said, that disparity between marketing never bringing in enough leads and sales never being able to close enough of the good leads that marketing were supposedly being in. It's kind of forced to get along
at the same time.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's always been a bit of a problem, but now actually you've got people who are brands who I think have done a great job of it, have aligned those two really, really well. And frankly speaking, I think the ones that are haven't embraced it and haven't kind of got onto that bandwagon and still think an ebook behind a paywall is going to cut it, you're going to get left behind, and it's not going to it's not going to fly anymore in 2022, in my opinion, anyway.
So I absolutely agree with you, and I think there's been a massive just as digitalisation has changed everything full stop over the last 2 years. I think there's probably been, never more rapid scale of evolution within marketing as well. Talk to us about some of the standout tactics and things that you've seen over the last couple of years in marketing, where companies have really got this right and been able to employ the tactics that are above a sort of gated ebook, as you say.
Cool. So I just for pulling out a few really. I think B2B world. I think within the fintech sector anyway, although they're not technically a fintech, they operate within. I think 11FS have done a great job. I actually had Eric Fulwiller on our podcast last week, and I think 11FS done a great job of making themselves part of the fintech community when secretly they're a management consultancy.
Yeah.
They've done a great job in hosting a podcast, getting founders of notable fintech players on, creating great content, being engaging, and being in the right place at the right time, and branding's really solid as well.
So I think fueled their growth at the same time as well, right?
Yeah, exactly that, and exactly that. So it's been great for them. And I think if you're a B2B player, they're a worthwhile example of looking at even. The B2C world, who's done a great job. I think, if you sort of go at the extreme end of, larger fintechs, I think my two favorite at the moment are PensionBee and Starling Bank.
Yeah.
So PensionBee, they've hit, they've IPO'd. They've a really, really solid job of understanding where they are in their journey and not trying to be too smart, not trying to overthink, doing a great job of test and learn and changing with the times and changing with the size of the company that they've become as well. So, they're now doing a lot more sort of branding, less direct stuff. They're sponsoring a football team. They're doing that because they've done the IPO. Starling Bank, I think strategically did a great job. Went after the B2B market in the challenger bank world. I thought that's fantastic because they got senior decision makers at SMEs, open up bank accounts with them, and then naturally have protected their personal accounts as well at the same time. And generally speaking, business owners, SME owners, tend to have a high net worth anyway. So they've actually got themselves higher value customers there, which I thought was a very, very smart play by Anne.
Well, they created a great story as well, didn't they? All the way through that, it's been they definitely embraced the challenger aspect of it all, and absolutely agree. They did a phenomenal job throughout all of that. Three great examples there of businesses that are doing it. And you're taking a lot of those sort of things out there and advising businesses at the moment who are doing it, who are potentially not at that IPO stage or that sort of size and scale of 11FS. How do you challenge within that? How do you help companies do that? What are Growth Gorilla doing to help companies come in there and prosper from that world at the moment?
Yeah, so I suppose the way we're helping our clients be challengers and actually be disruptive in that space is, I think, kind of goes back to what I was saying about what I think Jasper did at PensionBee, which is helping them realise that when they're launching their brand and launching their proposition, they're not Starling Bank, they're not Monzo, and there's nothing wrong with that. Making them realise that actually, and this always sounds a bit harsh when I say it, no one cares that they've launched. There's no fanfares, there's no trumpets. Put an ad live, and it's very, very uneventful. And what I mean by that is that it's about not getting too smart with the marketing on the outset. So being really, really clear, with what problem you're trying to solve for that audience, and making sure that your messaging and what you're putting in front of your target audience is really, really clear. For sort of the go-to-market piece in the younger brands, sort of too early on in the game to come up with a smart tagline or trying to sort of come the Hoover of the fintech world. There's a lot of brand value that's gone behind that. A lot of money has been spent, and really your first game is just to make sure that your proposition is of interest to your target audience. Your message conveys that, and that the user is going to sign up without any friction, and that they like using your platform. That's it. Keep it as simple as that. And if we do that and we get that right, and we start driving that volume in, and we do lots of testing, that's going to be the main thing. So, you know, it sounds very, very sort of unsexy and uneventful, and, you know, it's nothing like, you know, social network. There's no dramatic music playing in the background while we're doing it all. It's all very, very boring, really. But it's, you know, just getting those sort of fundamentals right, and then just constantly, you know, testing, experimenting, and trying new things, and then implementing the right tactics at the right time. So actually, prior to this, you know, recording today, I was just debating with a client, for example, the benefits of using animated ads as part of their campaign, and they're just about to launch, and they really, really want to use animated ads. The problem with that is, though, it takes time and money to produce an animated ad, and we still haven't worked out whether or not the audience is correct and the message that we've got in front of that audience is going to be well received by them, and if it's the right message.
Yeah. So
start off simple. You know, a static ad, very basic ad that communicates the message, you know, the right way, effectively, it's going to perform 10 times better than a fancy animated ad that's going to cost you about 6 times more.
Yeah, and this comes back to, you know, to the sort of unglamorous side, as you mentioned, of marketing, which is all about data and the numbers that come back to you off that. You know, I love the whole concept of brand personas and hyper personalization and looking at things there, which is directed. I always cite back to you know, Clive Humby and what they did with and we've done with Humby and Tesco Club Card, and how that sort of drove the right offers at the right times to the right people. And I think, you know, retail, for numerous reasons, has been, you know, far ahead in terms of how they've used data, how they've used marketing to basically, you know, grow tribes, you know, within that. And I think fintech's starting to catch up a little bit with that, and employ some of those tactics with, you know, data, which is, you know, so integral into the whole fintech community in the first place. That sort of, you know, I imagine you've heard it a million times before, particularly as a founder who's breaking into fintechs, who quite often are difficult to part with their money for you know, for various different reasons. The ROI question, and marketing has always come into that. It's, you know, the frustration of marketing has always been about, you know, making things pretty and tarting it up and all that sort of stuff, as opposed to this is about what marketing really is, which is driving growth and driving revenue in your business. When you come up against that sort of stuff, and you come up against the sort of, that sounds expensive, or that's you know, that's cost. You mentioned some big numbers earlier on about what people do and being realistic about their spend in that sort of space. What's how do you deal with the justification of that? What's the you know, what are the conversations you have in that world?
To be honest with you, we don't really have any sort of hard conversations anymore, if you want the truth. I think a lot of that is down to, there's sort of two parts to that. So one is, how do we justify, you know, cost for marketing up front, and then second of all, how do we then justify and demonstrate ROI? So cost up front, and you know, I suppose is dependent upon the channels that the client wants to use. You're kind of in the situation that if you want to drive growth, you're either going to have more, you know, you could ask yourself the question, do you have more money or do you have more time? If you've got more money than you've got time, you've got to go down paid channels. You know, you're going to have to use, you know, usual performance channels, Facebook, Google, etc., online stuff, or you then sort of move on to more above the line activity, offline channels, etc. But we'll kind of talk about ROI about those in a second. If you've got more time, you have got money, and you need to go down the organic route. And, you know, the headline cost for those will be cheaper, but you're paying in your time. And really, then what you're going to do is create content, build an audience, and then, you know, so content, distribute that content, build an audience, and then sell to that audience. It's still going to cost you something. You know, no marketing is free. You know, I always hear, oh, SEO is you know, is cheaper than paid, because once you've got the SEO rankings, you know, you bring in organic traffic, you don't have to pay for it. Absolute tosh. Okay, the amount of money that you need to pour into, if you're trying to target highly competitive terms with a broad number of keywords, you will pour hundreds and thousands of that. I know, because I have done that. Okay, we had agencies on retainer for about 8-9K a month doing that for us. I hear that argument very regularly about sort of, you know, organic channels versus paid, but if you're against it and you've got targets and goals that you need to meet, have been implemented by your investors, then And implementing an organic strategy could take 6 to 9 months for it to just kick in. So you kind of got no choice, that you kind of got to go down the paid route. But there's a benefit to that as well, because actually it's highly measurable as well. Whatever we spend on, say, Facebook or Apple search ads or whatever, can be completely tracked all the way down to the point that we can see what campaigns, what ad, what message put in a particular user, and then measure the lifetime value against that user. You just got to have the right tech stack in place for that. Which kind of brings me on to the second part, which is demonstrating ROI of marketing activity once you have got the campaigns live. To be honest with you, it's actually relatively easy. You just got to have the right, as I said, the right tracking stack in place. So if you're relying on Google Ads, Google Analytics, I'm not saying that we know better than other agencies, but if your current agency is relying on Google Analytics for all of your advertising activity, there's an issue there. So just to sort of talk about what fintech is, all fintech brands are kind of comprised of sort of 3 parts, especially B2C. You've got marketing website, sign up journey, and then you've got the app. The app will be either a web app, a mobile app, or probably both. That's pretty much what it is. So really, Google Analytics will kind of take you as far as first step of the sign up journey that you've got on your fintech app. But then after that, it's a single page application, or if it exists on the mobile app, you basically can't track any further, so you have to bin it. But you need it in place to communicate with Google Ads. What you then need to do is you need to then implement some sort of product development, product management tool like Heap, Mixpanel, or Amplitude. We like Heap. It's low code, it's very useful, and then you can collect the data, and then you can put that back into Google, etc. And then you can even measure down all the way down to how users have behaved across your website, your app, your mobile app, etc. So you've got multi-platform solution there. And if you've got a mobile app, you need to have something like an apps file or an adjust in place, because that's your mobile measurement tool that will tell you and help you measure all of your app installation stuff. So between those 3 things, you should have 100% transparency for all our clients. We can measure the moment the client clicks an ad, all the way into them signing up, say depositing money into their account, and then taking the first action, and therefore calculate lifetime value, therefore calculate what the cost is for, say, a first-time depositor. Then ultimately, then we can then calculate lifetime value as well.
It's
so that's actually really super easy to calculate ROI at that point.
Yeah. It's I think that it's that sort of process which I think is so important to be able to to look at, to measure, and to by the same rationale to improve, to continuously look to evolve that and make the most out of your pennies for it. I think there's a lot of people who go down and look at this and say, right, let's just pour good money after bad into the wrong strategy, aimed at the wrong people. And I guess that's where you add your the majority of your value, right? Helping people really understand the personas and they're pointing at, and make sure the right information hits the right eyeballs at the right time.
Pretty much, yeah. It's the value in what we do is not optimizing your ads campaign or helping you sort of come up with a keyword strategy. We're here to kind of solve the problems that really fintechs can't solve themselves, which is coming up with effective go-to-market piece, or helping them understand how to balance that volume in CAC, or helping them, like we did with one client, help them launch from sort of 3 territories now in 25 territories. How to do that positive ROI throughout the entire campaign over the last 12 months. So things like that. That's where our value is.
That's cool stuff to be helping companies with as well, right?
It's brilliant. In the early days, we sort of started off as saying that we were fintech and financial services, and I kind of very quickly moved off the financial services. My apologies to all financial services listeners out there. I personally got no interest in helping you drive mortgage leads. I think it's not only is it interesting, it's also fun, and it's fantastic to be able to take a brand new product that could have so much impact, change the landscape of an entire industry, an entire sector, or the way entire individuals or entire communities manage their money or purchase a product going forward. And to be at the part of that at the beginning, I mean that's fantastic. It's the whole reason why all of my team enjoy working at Growth Gorilla, is because they get to work. We also say that on our recruitment ads is we do cool shit, we do. We get to work on really cool brands and do cool stuff.
Yeah.
We're launching 3 neobanks this year. You know, find another boutique agency that's going to do that for you. So yeah,
that's exciting stuff. So if you're there and you're looking at these neobanks who you're talking to, or any of the businesses that you're there and able to help out, who are on the start of that journey right now, give us one golden bit of advice, because look, we've shot through half an hour in ferocious speed with all this, and you know, this is something I'm really passionate about. So I could probably speak about this for 3 or 4 hours. So I'm just trying to think about, right, people watching this now, if you're there and to give one bit of golden marketing advice, which someone over the other side of that is, you know, who's just in that position, pre-launch or thinking about launching, and they're thinking, right, what, you know, we need to think about our marketing here, our growth. What should they, you know, what should they be thinking about? What's the golden ticket? It's a big question to throw at you there, isn't it?
Yeah. I want to try and you know, impart my wisdom. Don't overcomplicate your marketing campaign. Be really focused on. So from a go-to-market perspective, you know, the audience that you're going after, the message you want to communicate, and the goal that you want to achieve. That's it. Just think about that. And then just ask yourself, if it's not going to help you achieve that, does it need to be done? Is it going to have a direct impact? If it's not going to help you achieve that goal, then just don't do it. It's just noise at that point. If you're in growth phase and you want to hit your numbers, my golden nugget there, start thinking about retention. Okay, because the acquisition piece is easy. Okay, super easy to do, because if you've got the right budgets, you've got the money behind you, you've got the framework in place, driving users, it's fine. What's going to really catalyze your growth is making sure that you haven't got a leaky kit and you're losing users out the other end. There's that famous stat: it costs 20% less to reactivate a customer than it to acquire a new one. I mean, it's so old, that one, I don't even know if it's true anymore. We know online that retention is cheaper than acquisition. So start thinking about, you know, looking at your attrition rate, thinking about how you can keep that to an absolute minimum, and look at your churn, look at where you're losing customers, and divert some of your marketing budget that way. You know, is it a feature that that you don't have? Get it implemented. You know, and take that. You know, marketing should take that ownership as well. When I was client side, we had clients that kept taking out money sort of in between trades. So in the end, we used some of our marketing budget to offer interest on clients that were holding money on account, and it stopped clients from removing money from their account, and it increased their trading volume on the back of it. So just, you know, be mindful of how you can sort of, you know, you've got that money there. You don't necessarily have to. It doesn't have to all go in Facebook. You know, there are other avenues. So just think about that CRM piece. You know, emails that you're sending out, what you're communicating. You know, are you nudging users in the right place? Have you got push notifications? It's a very well-known fintech at the moment that's just hit 1 million users, has the world's worst CRM strategy at the moment. I'm guaranteed that they're losing clients, or at least there's clients sitting on their account that they could probably significantly increase their user base just by having a slightly better communication strategy. No, because I've got money on account there, and they never sent me an email.
Just banging on the door.
Yeah, it's just saying that I'm waiting for them to send me an email to go, hey, are you interested in investing in this? Yeah. It's
what I love about those is you know, it's brilliant common sense, right? It's simplistic, and I love an old quote, going back to, you know, quotes, whether they're true and who they can be prescribed to. But there's an Vince Lombardi quote which says excellence is in the mastery of the fundamentals. And what you've spoken about there is things there which are wonderfully straightforward, but actually just the common sense and common practice are often separated from each other. So I think it's a brilliant thing that a space you're in at the moment. I'm really excited to see how it's developing and how it continues to grow. Who should be speaking to you, Shameer? Who should be reaching out right now, and who can you help?
Well, first and foremost, me fintech really, primarily B2C, in the B2B space, a bit more higher volume sort of B2B, so SMEs, you know, people targeting SMEs. And then, yeah, you know, if you've got a healthy seed round, you've got your Series A that you need to spend and you need to get some users in, Series B, and then the people to speak to, or, you know, within those sort of 3 pots, if you're looking to sort of start driving your growth, or you want to start entering new territories, that's our bag. Give us a shout.
Give them in touch. And what's the best way to give you a shout? How do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, two ways really. You can jump onto our website, growthgorilla.co.uk, click on the call to action, fill in the little form there, and myself, one of the team, will get in touch with you. Or alternatively, LinkedIn's great as well. You can reach me, just Google Shameer Sachdev. There's literally only one of me. Easy to find, just got to spell my name right. And then just drop me a note and I'll come back to you.
Fantastic. Listen, Shameer, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on the show. Thanks so much for imparting those little nuggets of wisdom within it as well, and talking about a subject so passionately. I think so important as well at the moment. So I wish you the very best of luck. Thanks for coming on the show, and really appreciate having you on.
Great stuff. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure, and thank you all for watching. We will see you soon on another episode of Fintech Focus TV. Thanks a lot.